Hello and welcome back to any returning listeners. Thank you for coming back. And to anybody who's listened to the podcast for the first time, my name is Hardy El Pinto. And last year I started a small business called Pulp Cereal where I distribute movie serials, feature films, and television shows, all with roots in Pulp Fiction. This is my podcast one on one, where I take somebody that I admire on social media and I force them to be my friend for a half an hour. Um, and today, so usually I talk with somebody on Twitter, and it's usually somebody who's also a film fan, just like I am. But today is a more of a special episode because I have somebody who's actually been in movies and TV, which is really cool. I met her at Santa Cruz Film Festival a couple of years back, and I'm going to introduce my guest, Alisha Seaton.
Hello, everyone. I apologize for having a hoarse voice. I've been sick, but we're hopefully going to make this happen anyway, and you'll be able to understand me clearly.
Oh, it's okay. I literally just got over a cold like 2 days ago, so I
Oh,
think they're okay. It's okay. Literally everybody had it. Everyone in my family had it.
I
Everyone in my
have
house.
I have two small children, and one of my friend's kids sneezed right on the plate of food at a birthday party, and I think that's where I caught this one. So I'm always getting sick with my kids.
Wow, that's unfortunate.
No. Everything they say about small kids and their diseases is true. You just get sick nonstop for the first few years.
Exactly. I know a couple different people that work like in preschools and pre-K type of stuff, and they're always getting sick because you just can't avoid it in that type of atmosphere.
No, no, you can't.
So besides that, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I went to my survival job. I'm an actress, which also means that I also double as something else for a lot of us. So I work as a substitute teacher for high school. So I was hanging out in pre-calculus today with a bunch of teenagers.
Oh, pretty cool. Right on. Yeah, no, a lot of people I interview, as much as we love movies and talking about movies, I mean, everybody, has a day job, even people who, are trying to be full-time critics. You need to do something to subsidize it because it can be really hard to, monetize something that you love.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's completely true. And uh, I love it enough that I'm willing to sort of deal with what it means to have sort of a freelance lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it can be rough. Like I said, I follow a lot of people on Twitter that are trying to make it, trying to make it as film critics and whatnot. And yeah, definitely freelance is the perfect word because it can be a little tough making a living.
Yes, it is. It's always worth it though. When I do end up on set, I love it so much that I keep putting myself back out there, wanting to, dealing with the rejection and the insecurity, because when I do make it, it's like coming home. So
Exactly, and you're really talented. Obviously, if people look you up, they're gonna see smaller parts, but you're really great at what you do. Something that I love that you do is something that I love in all actors and actresses that I've noticed in the things I've seen you in, that you can do a lot without having to say anything, and that's something I can really appreciate when somebody can convey so much emotion, not just through the character, but emotion through me watching without even having to use dialogue.
oh, thank you. Oh, well, it makes me really happy to hear that it resonates for you. It was definitely for anyone out there who's listening who's interested in acting or has acted. I started in the theater, and that's a whole different ballgame in terms of reaching your audience. And when I ended up going to the University of Southern California for college, which was a happy accident. I didn't actually want to go to USC. I really wanted to go to NYU. But as a California native, it just made more sense financially to stay in a home state. But what I didn't realize is that USC has a film program. So I met all these film students. I would track them down and audition for their short films and end up doing a bunch of those projects. So I started, learning a lot about how to tailor my performance to the camera. It's not even tailoring, it's just trusting that the camera will see it, which is a bit of a it's a big, how do I say, it's a learning curve, because you keep worrying that if you're not doing enough, you're boring. So you tend to try to, you want people to understand what the character is going through, and so you put a lot out there, and then when you watch it back, it's too much. So it helped to start in film so early, because it taught me so much about how to just trust the camera and trust the audience to see that they know what the person is going through.
Right on. And is when you're kind of, like I said, you convey a lot of emotion and a lot of things through the non-vocal part of your performance. Is that something that actors have in mind when they are performing? Do they break it down to like the vocal and non-vocal parts and like layers, or is that kind of more like a happy accident at times?
Well, I can only speak for myself. Everyone's process is very different. Um, well, we all want the same result, but everyone sort of gets there differently. For myself, I I can't say that I break it down beat by beat, because I think if I did that, it would feel more contrived, perhaps is the right word. But I've also had, I've been doing this for such a long time that when I trained, I started acting when I was 7. So I fell in love really early and took a lot of different acting classes. And I graduated with a degree in theater. I went to a performing arts high school. I attended conservatories during the summer. So there was a lot of training about subtext and beats, emotional beats, bit by bit, that you learn when you're in school. So now at this point, I guess it comes more instinctually. I don't have to write it down the way I used to when I was younger, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. Because I honestly like it more when an actor and actress is kind of doing it, even if it's intentional or non-intentional. Through you can tell that they have spent many years in the field when they can kind of convey this certain amount of emotion through a non-vocal performance. I don't know if you've seen The Irishman yet, Martin Scorsese's The Irishman, because
No, not yet.
okay, because there is like a subsect of people, at least on Twitter so far, that are upset about Anna Paquin's role in the film. Because the majority of the movie, she doesn't have any lines. There's only one scene where she does speak up, but that's kind of the point of the character. She's a silent character. It's a non-vocal performance, and it's supposed to punctuate her one scene when she does talk, when she does decide to speak up to her father, played by Robert De Niro. And I just think it's really interesting because even though she doesn't talk for a majority of the film, you can kind of completely understand what her character is going through and what her motivations are and how she views the world and what her father has been doing without ever saying anything.
Well, I'd say that's a great accomplishment. That I mean, that character, her character, obviously connected with you when you were watching it. You felt you understood her, so it sounds like she did her job really well. I
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, um there's a lot to be said for trusting in silence. Um, Actors get nervous when nothing's being said. It's especially true in improv. Um, and just, people in general. So we kind of rush to fill the gaps. But it's interesting when we just sort of let things breathe for a second, what could actually come out on film as, as much as in real life. But no, I'll have to see it. It's on my list with all the other. There's so much content these days, I can barely keep up.
Exactly. I just finished watching that the other night. I had to watch it over 2 nights because it's 3.5 hours long.
I heard, I heard it's going to be tough. I know that he, the director, was talking about how much he wanted people, if they were going to watch it at home, to silence their phone, try to concentrate on it as much as if they were in the theater, because he wants them to have that experience. And it's hard. It's one problem with watching big films at home is it's so easy to get up and get a snack or answer that email that just came in on your phone real quickly, or you know in my case the children come out of their room and interrupt. So it's definitely changed the way we experience cinema, I'd say, by watching it at home.
Exactly. Like today, I don't know if you know, again, Netflix released yet another prestige film. They released a Marriage Story today. And my
Oh,
sister, yeah, we're at lunch this afternoon and we're talking about like, okay, when can we set aside time to watch this 2 hour plus movie? We're like, we're not going to have time today to do it. So we're like, okay, well, Saturday morning, we don't have anything to do tomorrow morning. We're going to set aside time, sit down, and we're gonna give Marriage Story the time it deserves, because I think at this point we definitely both really like Noah Baumbach's work and respect him enough to try to set aside the 2 hours to watch it all in one sitting.
yeah, no, I completely agree. I have so many films that actually are sitting on my to watch list because I don't want to watch them when it's being interrupted over and over and over, which is a lot of my life. If anyone has kids, they can understand. Um, but and which is sometimes why I appreciate just having a go-to. If you go to television shows that are 22 minutes or 40 minutes, because I know I can usually get one of those in without being interrupted. Um, so I do watch a lot of TV these days, I have to say, just because the time frame fits my life so much more as a mom.
Exactly. Yeah, there are times when I look at my watch list because I have, one on Netflix, one on Hulu, one on Criterion, and I think at night, when everyone else has gone to bed, I'm like, will I be able to stay awake to fully enjoy one of these?
It's so true. I go to bed so early, it's embarrassing.
Which is a good thing. I mean, definitely. I think the bad thing about my generation in particular is that a lot of us definitely tend to stay awake way later than we should and then complain about it the next morning when we have not got enough sleep and have to be at work.
Yes. Yeah, no, I know that the majority of Americans get less than 6 hours, I think, or only six, and we're supposed to get 8. I think I've read something along those lines.
Yeah, that's definitely my sleep patterns. I usually get 6, maybe 7, and then on an off day, if I'm lucky, yeah, I can get 8 hours. But yeah, you're definitely supposed to get 8. And then I think if you get 9 or 10, that's also not good. I watched like a video on YouTube that not enough sleep and too much sleep are actually both bad for your body.
Oh yeah, I could see that. You have a sleep hangover if you get too much.
Exactly. So, like you said, you've been acting for, a little while now. And I just, you've done many different things. Obviously, you've been in features, you've been in TV, you've been in a long list of wonderful little, independent short films. Is there any genre that you haven't done yet that you would absolutely love to do in the future?
Oh my gosh. Well, I would love to be on some sort of show that deals with the supernatural. It's That's my go-to comfort food. I grew up reading fantasy novels, or devouring fantasy novels, I should say, and I did the play Narnia. They called it Narnia, not The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, when I was a sophomore in high school, and I got to play Lucy. And I remember that, to me at the time, felt like I just had reached the pinnacle of wish fulfillment, because I wanted, that's why I love acting so much, is getting the chance to step outside my own life and into someone else's story. And I would love to work on something that is, not real. I love magic and elves and werewolves and vampires and zombies, any of those things. Anything that can't happen in real life, I would probably love to dive into.
Okay, well, I mean, I definitely hope you get the chance to. Hopefully, you'll, I don't know, get like a guest spot on like Riverdale or Nancy Drew or something like that, where they
Oh,
will
that
tout.
would be fun. I've been watching The Magicians on Sci-Fi, and that kind of show. Oh, I would have so much fun. Unfortunately, I'm usually not the type that they go to cast, so I'd have to find that niche somewhere someday. There's going to be a director who sees something in me that most people don't see when they typically look at me. There's a lot of stereotyping when you're an actor, and people look at, they get a sense of your essence and your vibe and how you look, and you tend to play those roles because it helps serve the story. You're telling the story better when you fit into the universe they're trying to say or tell. So I can completely appreciate that. But every now and then, I have had a director who's seen me in a completely different light. And usually, those are some of my absolute favorite projects to work on. I did one project where I looked like a sweet preschool teacher, mom character, and this director cast me as the lead singer of a metal band, an all female metal band. And I was completely gothed out, and I was aggressive and brutal and troubled, and it was so much fun.
Oh, that
And
sounds wonderful.
yeah, no, it was really fun. And even after the audition, he told me this story later. The director told me that the producer said, no, no, she's great. She's a great actress, but do you really think she's this character? And the director, his name's David Becker, he said, yeah, no, she's got it in her. And I didn't even know I did, but I'm really proud of my work in that. It's actually on Amazon Prime if anyone ever gets curious to see a sweet looking mom character go to the dark side, so to speak.
All right, yeah, that sounds great. Luckily, I just got Amazon Prime last night because I wanted to watch the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I pay for
Oh,
that once.
that's such a great show. Oh, I
Yeah,
love that show.
yeah, I
That's
only
another thing I'd love to do, as a period piece.
yeah, no, you'd be great in that, definitely. Because yeah, I only pay for that like once a year when that show comes on, and then I try to watch as many movies that are on Prime that aren't on anything else, and then I cancel it, and then I don't think about it until next December.
I'd say Amazon is still getting a good deal, even if they get you only for a few times a year. But yeah, no, that's a great series. And there's something about doing period when you get to put on a costume that is so unlike anything yet you're used to wearing. So much of the character work gets done for you when you put on something that feels different and looks different. It already starts changing the way you perform. It's so much fun. I'd really love to do something one day when there's a corset that I get wrenched into. Some sort of king's, medieval times sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I know what you mean because I remember after watching the first season after of Mrs. Maisel, someone had mentioned, "Oh yeah, Rachel Brosnahan. She used to be on House of Cards." I was like, "Wait, what?" I was like, "I watched House of Cards. I own those DVDs. What are you talking about? Who was she?" And had to go back and look. I'm like, "Oh, I watched her for 2 seasons on that show and didn't even recognize her
It's
when
amazing what the hair and makeup as well can do. I mean, they just can completely transform the way an actor reads to the audience.
exactly. And it's funny because, like, when you hear her voice and other things on Mrs. Maisel, it's not necessarily that she's doing an accent. She just has to change her voice ever so slightly, especially to adapt to that type of dialogue that, the Palladino dialogue that, her and her husband write, that very quick, really just like shooting daggers at each other kind of dialogue that they have to speak every single episode.
Yeah, no, it's so much fun, I have to say. I can understand why so many people show up in Los Angeles every year because acting it's a lot of fun if you're lucky enough to get to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, because I would never call myself an actor. Obviously, I did drama for 4 years in high school.
Really?
I don't know if I was necessarily any good at it, but it was just one of those things where it was so fun because I had started. I think yeah, I started creative writing in like eighth grade, and when I realized we had a drama program because it was a charter school, it was like a smaller school, so it wasn't like a full fledged like theater program necessarily, but when I realized there was like a drama class, like it was a way for me to get my writing to the public. As someone who's like 14, that's kind of really exciting. Not only could I get it in front of people's eyes and ears, I was able to, perform it myself and dictate exactly how it was supposed to be done.
Yeah, no, that's it's I well clearly it worked for you because you kept going back year after year for all of high school. And it's a great way for people to I would recommend, you know, if anybody even has an inkling of wanting to try it, just for fun, they should try it because you learn a lot about yourself and people and sort of an emotional intelligence by taking on acting.
Exactly. It's a very different type of experience, even if you do something as simple as like, taking an improv class, like the, the way your mindset before taking the class and the mindset like after taking the class are kind of two different things.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah. So definitely it's something that definitely wasn't for me. Obviously, I definitely like being uh
Behind the
yeah,
scenes.
behind the scenes, like producing this podcast, nonfiction stuff. Like I at that point, I was trying to write screenplays and stuff, but obviously they weren't very good because I was in high school, and I definitely like more nonfiction writing about films for different websites, like I am now, and of course, like doing this podcast, which I kind of fell ass backwards in, but I ended up really enjoying. I really like doing what we're doing right now. This is fun.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed listening. I've listened to a few of your episodes. I'm going to keep following along. I I just listened to your Independent Spirit Awards episode.
Oh, thank
And
you.
yeah, no, well, I love hearing people talk about film. I'm always interested in what people have to say about it. I think podcasts are a really cool free entertainment form out there. It's I spend a lot of time in my car in Los Angeles and I am a huge fan of podcasts.
Well, thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate that. Because, like I said, it's just definitely something that I didn't know I was capable of doing and putting together. But I guess technically we all are because every single child kind of had that moment where they started playing with like a tape recorder and
Yes.
pretending like they had their own little radio show. But it's weird now we're adults, like because technology has advanced so much that we can all do that.
And it's great because you can get so many points of view. I love listening to people's stories, where they came from, where they're going. It's one of my it's really yeah, no, it's great. And I really appreciate the chance to be on one for the first time.
Oh, that's actually that. Wow, that is surprising. I did not realize I was your first.
You
Um,
are I hope I
okay.
did I hope I did okay.
No, you've been doing great. I mean, definitely, you're not the first person I've had on this year. Earlier, I had on Kylie, who is Saga of Ginger on Twitter. She is wonderful. She is a Ginger Rogers aficionado. She's seen all
Oh,
her movies and
cool.
has a love for Ginger Rogers and is currently writing a book about her. And she was incredibly nervous because this was her first time ever on a podcast. But I kind of had to talk to her because of that raw ambition and passion for something that was kind of bigger than herself.
Yeah, well, it's a great way too for people to learn about her book. When she's finally done down the road and it gets published, people will know where to look for it.
Exactly. All right. So this has been really fun. Sadly, we do have to go now. This is a little shorter than the usual episode. I do apologize to everybody, but I hope you enjoyed listening. I definitely enjoyed having this conversation, and I hope you enjoyed being on the podcast today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
All right. No, thank you. Definitely. So we'll say goodbye to everybody now. Goodbye, everybody, and thank you for listening.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.